Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A. Let me get the hat on. You guys already know. I don't need to say it every time, do I? Alright, first question. I seem to have a hard time progressing on the bench press, but no problems at all progressing on the dip. Do you think it's a technique flaw with my bench press, or could it be something else? Do you think it would be a good idea to just ditch the bench press and just focus on the dips? Because at the moment I feel like I'm getting nowhere on the bench press, and it makes me a lot less motivated to perform the exercise. P.S. I'm in the late novice phase. Alright, good question, brother. A couple different ways we could go with this one. You know, honestly, I don't do any pressing for my chest anymore. I do nothing but dips. My chest certainly isn't suffering for it. But it's because I'm trying to focus more on my overhead press, and I'm just doing dips to keep, because they're almost like squats for the upper body. All right, late novice phase. All right, you've gone through your noob gains. You've gotten to a point to where it becomes more and more difficult to gain strength, particularly on those exercises like the presses. And you know what? You didn't say where your bench press is, but you're saying late novice phase. I'm going to assume you're probably benching over 200 for reps already then. And you know what? That's great. That's awesome if that's where you are. Plenty of guys at gyms who go to gyms all the time can't bench 225 for clean reps, or 205 for clean reps sometimes, without bouncing it off their chest and everything. So if you're doing it right, then hey, props to you. But a couple things to consider there. I think what's happening here, when I'm listening to what you're saying, there's a pattern going on. You're struggling to progress on the bench press, but your dips are just zipping along. Well, interestingly enough, dips become more difficult as you gain body weight, do they not? Because you're adding weight. So if you're progressing on your dips right now, I'm thinking maybe your body weight isn't moving very much. We have studies on power lifters, actually really good studies on power lifters that show that out of the deadlift, the squat, and the bench press, that there's the strongest correlation between body weight and bench press out of any of the 3 power lifts. So what does that tell you? Well, we know that when you're not gaining body weight, it is more difficult to increase your bench press. People who weigh more tend to bench press more easier. Whereas in things like the deadlift aren't as dependent upon body weight. All these lifts are dependent upon gaining muscle, but some exercises out of your big barbell movements are more or less dependent upon changes in body weight. Bench press out of the big power lifts, again, strongest overlap between changes in body weight and changes in strength on it. I'm going to say you've probably stagnated in your weight gain. You might even be slowly losing weight, in which case you might be recompositioning slowly and either losing weight or maintaining weight. Your bench press is stalling because of the lack of body weight gain. Your dips are going up because you're gaining muscle and strength. And probably a lot of your extra strength gain is going over to the dips because you're gaining muscle there and you're focusing on it more. Because you're focusing on it more, you're progressing on it more because you're more motivated to do it because you're enjoying it more. Right? I think that's a big factor. And so then you have less energy being put into the bench press, which has been going up slower due to stagnant body weight. So you've got a couple options here. If you decide that your bench press is really important, you're going to need to start eating more. You're going to need to start seeing the scale go up a pound every month again, maybe even 2 pounds a month. However, if you don't compete in powerlifting, you don't care about impressing anyone with your bench press, and you're not going to compete in football where you're tested on the bench press and the combine, and you enjoy doing the dip more, you really enjoy the dip and it doesn't cause you any pain, the dip is an amazing exercise. Outside of those other endeavors, sport-specific endeavors, I see no reason why the dip can't completely replace the bench press. And if you're more motivated to do the dip and you enjoy it more, considering all the little fringe benefits it gives you with stabilizer muscles, then fine, quit bench pressing for a while and focus on your dip. It's not like you can't build a massive chest and massive triceps off of the dips. Again, I'm not doing terrible these days, and that's what I do for mine. I do dips for my chest. Overhead press. All right? That's it. It's a fantastic exercise. So go ahead and go for it. Dip. Cut the bench out for a little while if you want to. If you don't feel like gaining weight and it's stressing you, and focus on that exercise that you love. Do it. All right, next question. Talk about accessory selection. The most amount of accessory exercises to choose after heavy compounds, and which are the best Complementing heavy compounds include bench, squat, deadlift, and overhead press. All right, yeah, those are your basic big compounds. All right, well, here's your thing. There are no best accessory movements. There are no necessary accessory movements. Accessory movements are just that. Accessories. What's the purpose of an accessory? To bring up weak points in what else you're doing. Whatever your weak points are for you, whether it's an aesthetic weak point, a strength weak point, a sport-specific weak point, that's what your accessory work is there for in a basic program. Now, the one thing I would add, I don't see any sort of rowing or pull-ups or anything or chin-ups in there. You might want to add one of those. That will probably balance you out. But truth be told, if you're just trying to get big and strong, and that's all you care about, and you don't have any specific weak points at this time that you need to address, you don't need any other exercises besides some sort of rowing or chin-ups in addition to what you're doing. All right, I would consider, for overall balance, maybe adding weighted chin-ups to what you're doing. But if you don't have an imbalance, then you don't need any accessory movements. Do your 5 basic exercises, then you're done. Why do you need anything else? Accessory movements are there to improve your weak points. They're there to improve your weak points, and sometimes your main exercises complement each other. For example, you guys see me talk about doing the pin lay row. Brittany, I have her do pin lay rows. Why? Because it is a primary exercise that complements the closed grip bench press and the conventional deadlift. That's simple. That's what you have to look at. It's each of these individual exercises, but oftentimes when you're looking for a complementary exercise, you're looking at a complementary exercise that brings up a weak point or addresses a strength imbalance. And if you don't have any to address or none that you're concerned about enough to address, just keep working on your basic lifts. If you feel like you need to do more work in the gym, add more work with your basic lifts. Problem solved. Remember that, guys. If you don't see a weak point that needs to be addressed, you don't need accessory work. You don't even need isolation work if you don't have any weak points. That's the only reason these things exist. That's the only reason isolation movements exist, to bring up an existing weak point or muscle imbalance. That's it. There's no reason to do them outside of that. So if you're happy with the way that you're progressing in proportion, strength, size, everything else with your basic lifts, what do you need an accessory for? What do you hope to gain from it? I see no reason to even do any. And if you have weak points, then pick exercises to address those weak points. People forget that with accessories. All right. Next question. Hi, Jason. I find it hard to get enough calories during the work week to reach my strength goals in the gym, so I end up being about 400 to 500 calories deficit each day. I was wondering if I eat more on the weekends to make up for this deficit so that my total weekly calorie numbers are in line with my goals. Does it matter that I do not hit my calorie goals each day? Thanks. Fantastic question. Does it matter? It will matter in the short term for your day-to-day training in the middle of the week. Meaning if you're not getting enough calories week to week to fully recover between training sessions, it can be problematic. For someone in your situation, I'm going to assume because you either have a very busy or a very physically demanding job and then you get to chill on the weekends, structure your training around that a bit. Now, that being said, can you get away with doing what you're wanting to do? Can you still bulk and gain weight and clean bulk if you had to in a calorie deficit on your Monday through Friday and just overeat enough on the weekends to bulk? Yes, absolutely. It has been done successfully. Some of the most successful recomposition programs in the world I've ever seen use methods like that. So can you regulate your body weight by your total weekly net energy turnover versus caloric intake? Absolutely. Absolutely. No problem at all doing it that way. So if you're stuck in a 500 calorie deficit Monday through Friday and you want to maintain your current body weight to recomposition or whatever, you're going to need to squeeze in an extra 2,500 calories on the weekends, preferably from carbohydrates. The reason I say carbs, you're going to gain less fat that way. You're going to super compensate your glycogen stores, and when Monday rolls around and you're ready to train, you're probably going to be at your strongest Monday or Tuesday. So if you're running some sort of structured program like the Texas method or something that has a heavy, medium, and light day, reorder them around your food. Meaning do Monday as your heaviest day, Wednesday is your medium day, and Friday is your lightest day. All right? Particularly if you've got a more metabolic fatigue-oriented day, that is lighter weight and you're doing some undulating type training, throw it in on the Friday because you'll super compensate better from the weekend overfeeding. But yeah, a lot of people have this problem. I mean, I've known serious competitive powerlifters who struggle to get their food due to their job because they have a physically demanding job where they're on their feet 10 hours a day and they're over 200 pounds and they're trying to gain muscle and weight. They have to do the same thing. It's about slamming those extra carbs on the weekend. And you know what? I've seen guys do it very, very successfully and get big and strong. And I've seen drug-free guys pull this off even. So it's not just a steroid thing. I've had a friend who was a drug-free IPF, and I was a personal friend of his, and we talked a lot about this stuff. He actually was a legitimately clean athlete and I determined that based on his mentality. Like, he was actually scared of steroids. And he struggled with that a bit, but he was actually scared to put them in his body. He was like, even if I could cheat and get away with it, he's like, I'm scared of not being able to be a father. I'm scared of the repercussions. So I'm not willing to go down that route. And he was still over 200 pounds. He was a big boy. But he went through something similar to what you're talking about, just do long hours in a physically demanding job. And he struggled with weight gain, and he had to just pig out come weekend time. Otherwise, he would start losing weight. Just is what it is. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, I see a lot of people using the leg extension machine as part of their leg routines. I remember you did a video a couple years ago discussing the amount of stress it puts on the knee joint. Should people be doing this exercise regularly, and if they choose to do it, how can they minimize joint damage? Thanks. All right, like any other exercise, that is dangerous. There are ways to perform them safely. Is the leg extension a risky exercise? Yes, it is. I think it puts an undue amount of stress on the knee joint. And I think the benefits you get out of it generally don't outweigh that. However, if for whatever reason you insisted upon doing this exercise, and I'm not going to knock people's choice. If they have some obsession that says in their head that they have to do the leg extension because their mother's been kidnapped and someone has a gun to her head and they're going to kill her if you don't do leg extensions every week. Okay, I understand that. So, you don't want your mother to die, so you're going to have to do the leg extensions, but you don't want to destroy your knee joints. And yes, I'm speaking in hyperbole because I think the exercise is that fucking stupid. But I wouldn't want my mother to die, so I would find a way to do them. All right, worst thing you could possibly do with a leg extension is do it early in the training session because fresh quads are stronger. Stronger quads means you're going to put more weight on there, more load, and you're going to put more stress on the knee joint. So people who do this pre-exhaustion shit, which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen bodybuilders come up with. You talk about ending up being weak and snapped up, do pre-exhaustion. Literally, the person who came up with this should probably be executed because of the harm they've caused, but he's already killed himself. So I wouldn't worry, you don't have to do that. He took care of it himself. But, yeah, and I'm serious about that, by the way. So he did the world a favor with that. I like some of his stuff, but he at least had the decency to blow his own brains out. So, avoid pre-exhaustion. Avoid pre-exhaustion. Do them at the end of a workout. Do them with a light weight. Don't ever go heavy on them, and don't ever bounce. Don't ever bounce on them. Do a weight that you can do just at a smooth range of motion after you've done your other leg work, preferably squats and stuff, and don't go under 20 reps. Do 20 rep sets of them. That way you're forced to use a light weight, but you need to do so without putting any bounce or jarring in there. And make sure that you're already fatigued so that you can't use a heavy weight on them. So basically, even if you're a 600-pound squatter and you decide to get on there, if you're still using the whole stack on the leg extension, you better go do a bunch more 600-pound squats so that you can go down and use a fourth of the stack. That would be my advice on it. Going heavy on the leg extension is how you destroy your knees. If you're going to do it at the end because you need to save your mother's life because she got a gun at her head, make sure that you're so fatigued that you can't go heavy, and make sure you're doing at least 20 rep sets because you're only doing them for metabolic fatigue anyways, not for mechanical tension. So get true metabolic fatigue out of them. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.